My name's Cristina Garza. I'm from Austin, Texas. Well, I'm American, but both my parents are Mexican, so I'm full Mexican in ethnicity. But I was born here. My dad came over when he was 5, and I think he was born in Monterrey. My mom was born here, but her family came here right before that she was born, and I think they're from like the Guanajuato area. Where? Austin also. I've lived there most of my life. I moved away just for school, and but that was about it. Came back to Austin when I was done. My parents are a pretty traditional Mexican family. They're very protective and conservative. They really weren't on board with me playing pool when I first started, and really haven't been until recently. They've never come out to see me play before, and but I think they're a little bit more supportive of it now. When I started dating Shane, I think they saw that there's a different side to pool than what they thought it was. I would always try to show them that and try to get them to come out to some of my events to see that it's not always in seedy pool halls, but once they met him and other people in the industry, they kind of realized that it's not all what they think it is. So they're a little bit more on board with it now. But I have a really close family. I have an older brother that is 2 years older, and I have a younger sister that still lives at home, and a younger brother that is a cousin that my parents adopted when he was younger. So we have a kind of a big family, but pretty traditional Mexican family. I understand it more fluently than I speak it. I took 4 years in college, so by school terms I'm fluent, but I haven't used it in so long that I used it a little bit with my family, but not very much. And when my parents were growing up, they were discouraged from speaking Spanish in school. So when we were coming through school and we were growing up, it was kind of in that time period where they thought it wasn't important for us to know, because it was something that they were reprimanded for all the time when they were growing up. So they never really taught us. No, I honestly haven't been there in a really long time. I know we have a lot of family in the Monterrey area, and my brother goes sometimes because he studied there one summer, so he's close with our family there, but my sister and I haven't been that many times. So no, I think most of our family lives in San Antonio. My mom and my dad both come from huge families of 5 siblings each, so, and almost all of those live in the San Antonio area, so we go there a lot. No, I started playing about 5 or 6 years ago. I played a little bit when I was in college. They had pool tables in the dorms, so when we were bored in between classes, we would play a little bit, but I didn't really play until I moved back to Austin after school, and it was about 2003, I think, where I joined an APA league and just started out playing that way. And then I would see the Fast Eddie's tour and the OBQ's tour, which was then the Hunter tour, come to town, and then I saw those girls and wanted to try to learn. So I started going to an instructor in that area, Rod Gustafson. He was, I think he's one of like 11 Master BC instructors in the world. He was a really good coach, and so he kind of taught me a lot quickly, and that's it. I just started out playing leagues a few years ago. So. I'm not sure if I can answer that yet. I know I want to play on the WPBA at least for a little while. It's not as important to me to try to be like the #1 player in the world or anything, because I want family and all of that, and I think it's kind of hard to balance both of those, but I just love playing pool, and I love as much as some people get frustrated with the industry, I actually like the industry. So I think as long as I can do something where it's a round pool and I get to play, then I'm happy with that. So, but yes, I mean, I do want to play in the WPBA, and I think I have this week is our last tournament this year, and if I at least do decent there, then I think I should be exempt next year. But we'll see after next week. It's in Florida. It's the Hard Rock Seminole event. I think kind of reversing that question, and because it's something that me and a lot of my girlfriends talk about, being a girl in the pool industry, it's hard to find a guy in or outside of it, because I think a lot of male pool players, not all of them, but I mean just by nature, because of the way the men's side is set up, there's not a formal tour, there's a bunch of independent events, and you kind of have to, some of you have to do the gambling to do it. I think just by nature, some of them are hustlers in the game, and that carries over to personal life, so they aren't necessarily the kinds of guys you want to date. I mean, not all of them, but the majority of them. But at the same time, guys outside of the industry don't really understand the amount of time that we put into pool and traveling and all of that. So I think it's pretty difficult to find somebody that's, secure enough and independent enough to outside of the industry, but understand your desire to spend as much time as you do on it, or as much traveling as you do, because I do a lot of traveling for my work, and I do a lot of traveling for pools, so it's hard to find someone that's okay with that. I work for the state in Texas. I work with attorneys at the state bar. My division runs continuing legal ed conferences. So lawyers have to take so many legal ed credits every year to keep their license current, and we put on those conferences, but that's just like one part of my job. Since ours is the Minority Affairs Department, we're also the liaisons for any of the minority bar associations or any small minority-owned firms. So anything that has to do with minority issues, from appointing new board of directors for the state bar to working with any of the sections and committees of the bar. So we do a lot of stuff. So I travel a lot for that, which is actually why I'm here in New York for work. Not for a tournament, but I will be going next week to China. I got invited to the World Championships, so I'll be going there with Nicole Keeney and Angel Paglia. We're going to be traveling together, and I'll probably be going to Spain for the Predator event in January. So not yet, but soon I will be. I think because I'm a math and science type of person, the game was always real interesting to me because there's a lot of physics to it and a little bit of math to it, I guess. But I don't know. I think at every level, I don't realize how much I don't know until I know more about it. You know what I mean? Once you get better, then you realize how completely ignorant you were to what your level was, I guess. So I don't really know how to answer that. No, my dad is an electrical engineer, and he's the only person in his family that went to college. So to him, going to college and working in a technical field was his way to succeed, and so he really thought that that's the only way to really do something successful, I guess, So pool was, and even now, I think he doesn't think that pool is something that I could actually make a living on, which I can understand that. I think I think a lot of pro players will say that too. It's tough to do that, but I'm a big believer that you can make money in anything that you love. So as long as you can manage yourself the right way and make the right business decisions, I think I think you can find a way to do it. Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that you can do that just in tournament payouts, because that's so dependent on other people and to produce those tournaments, but I think that's why I like to do a lot of the interviews and the commentary and things like that, because it gives me the opportunity to be around those higher level tournaments, even if I'm not playing in them. And I get to do it for a lot less cost than what it would for most people to go to them, you know. So at most events I'm making money rather than potentially spending money or potentially coming out negative, you know. It depends on the event, but I started out with Inside Pool Magazine. J.R. Calvert hired me to do different events with them, and that's really where I've gotten most of my experience and where I've learned the most, I guess, too. So I worked with him and Sam Deep and some of their crew. But since then, I've also done some work with Kazoom, who does the Predator events, and I'll be working with Matchroom Sport at the Moscone Cup this year. And I worked with the Taylor Road guys in Galveston. So those are the 4 that I've worked with so far. So it just depends on the event, who's putting it on, and as to what it is. There's a lot of different places. I know Inside Pool has on InsidePoolMag.com, there's a video portal on there, and if you just search my name, you can find any of the videos that I did. But any of the commentary work I've done is more pre-recorded stuff for later that I don't think they put online. So, but a lot of the interviews you can find on there for Inside Pool. You can go to the predator10ball.com. I want to say /Vegas 2009 if you want to find the Kazoom stuff that I did, but I'm not sure if that's the right link. I went to my first 2 years of high school, and then I left when I was 16 to the Texas Academy of Math and Science. It was like a residential early college entrance program at North Texas. So I went with 200 other kids around Texas. We took college courses on the college campus, so we were in normal classes with the other students too, the other college students, but our graduation requirements were just different. So when we graduated, we had 60 hours of credit going into college. So I think that was a really impressionable thing for me, because that kind of opened. I mean, I lived in Texas and in Austin my whole life, and then going there, meeting all of these people, and it's incredible to see what all of them do now. They're spread all over the country, all over the world. And we just had our 10-year high school reunion this year, so seeing everybody and what they're doing now, it's that kind of opened my eyes to wanting to travel more and see more of the world, I guess. And I think that's my favorite thing about pool, is that all the places I get to go and the things I get to see. So. When I first started taking lessons, my instructor, first thing he asked me was, what do you want to do with pool? Like, do you just want to improve a little bit? Do you want to try to play pro someday? Like, what are your ambitions? And I told him that I wanted to play pro someday. And he said, okay, well, the level that you want to be playing, anybody's going to be able to run out an open table. So it's who controls the table best when it's not open that's going to win matches. So before he even taught me much about position play or any of that, I just learned a ton of routine safeties, and he's a big 3-cushion player, so he taught me all kinds of kicking systems and rail systems. So I think the strongest part of my game is probably my safeties and my kicking. I don't think I'm as strong I'm not very offensive when I play, I guess. And being a math person, I kind of I really only shoot high percentage shots unless there's no other shot, So I think maybe my weakness is just having confidence maybe in some of the big stroke shots, because I don't think I have a very big stroke, and that's something that I've tried to work on a lot, but not really sure how to change. I mean, it takes a lot longer than just learning a concept, That's when you change your stroke, you kind of change everything, so that's Yeah, he taught me a lot. I think the main things that I learned from him, we worked on my break a lot, and he taught me a lot about racking and what balls are important when you're trying to make, particularly like a 9-ball, when you're trying to make certain balls, which ones need to be frozen, and the same thing in 10-ball and 8-ball. And like this year in Vegas, before we played for I won the Women's Open 8-ball, and before we started, we probably had maybe a 2-hour session where he just worked with me on certain specific shots and certain things. And a good amount of the time we worked on racking and making sure that I knew how to freeze certain balls when you're racking for yourself, and then on breaking too on those tables. And so yeah, I would say my break is probably one of the big things that he helped me with, and some like shot decision choices. There were a lot of times where, things like sometimes kicking off one rail is the easiest way to hit the ball, but you get more results if you do it off 2 rails or things like that. So he helped me a lot with kick safeties and learning how, like, what kinds of spin helps you get where you want it to after you've kicked off the rail, things like that. Because before I would just think about hitting at the right angle, but he showed me how using different spins helps you control where the cue ball's going more too, and things like that I didn't know before. So. I think I would date a guy that is a pool player, but maybe doesn't do it as his profession, like somebody, because I think you almost have to, being a girl in pool, you almost have to date somebody that at least understands it, because I find it difficult. Like after a tournament, I want to relate. I want to be able to call someone and talk about it, or, and somebody that doesn't understand pool can't discuss it on the same level, you know what I mean? And so I think I would date somebody that is a player, as long as that's not what they do for a living. Yes, my parents are very routine people. So we've lived in the same house since I was about 3 or 4 years old. And one of the girls that's actually here with me in New York right now is one of my best friends that I've known since that time, and her family still lives there too. So my family's always lived there. I spent the summer in Boston, and I lived in Maryland for a year for college, and in Dallas for the rest of my college. But that's pretty much it. When I was done with school, I went back to Austin and been there ever since. I don't know, Austin, there's a lot of live music. Downtown isn't a very huge downtown with lots of skyscrapers or anything like that. It's pretty tame. It's kind of, it's not quite as busy or crazy as places in this area, I guess. But it's really pretty scenery. Downtown is kind of centered right between just like a flat area and what we call the hill country in Texas. So you're right on the border of all these hills where leads out to the lake, and there's, Town Lake runs through the middle of downtown. So it's real pretty jogging trails downtown, and there's a lot of outdoor activities in Austin. A lot of people do mountain biking and hiking and things like that. And I don't know, it's a pretty relaxed kind of atmosphere. I don't know. There's other places I like to live, but I think I appreciated it more once I moved away. I loved Boston when I lived there that summer, but I live there in the summer. So, if I was there in the winter, I don't know if I would love it so much. But I think I appreciate a lot of things about different places, but I like Austin now that I had a chance to leave it. I kind of missed it, so. I just joined a league when I got back from school. I was out with a friend one night, and one of their friends played on leagues, and he invited me to play in one of his leagues, and I just thought of it as something to do, like softball or anything like that, and didn't realize how like you said, addicting it would get. So I went from just playing in one league to 3 or 4 a week, and then once I started playing the tours, I kind of dropped off the leagues a little bit because the league operator in that area would kind of schedule a lot of major league tournaments during the Fast Eddie's tours or things like that, so I started having to choose between them. But that was it, really. I mean, I just joined a league and then started playing too much. I probably only get to shoot maybe once a week, and that's if I go to league that week. I don't really get to practice that much because I travel so much for work, and then on top of that, so a lot of my practice is just like the regional tours that I go to in Texas. I probably get better practice playing in a tournament on the weekend than I would during the week. But because my boss is pretty lenient with me when I'm out of town, I have to make up a lot of those hours when I am in town, so I work a lot of overtime during the week when I'm there. Like I looked at my Southwest frequent flyer things, and I've flown over 55 flights this year. So I travel a lot for both, and I just don't get a lot of time to play. I try to, but I'm not very often. I mean, when I'm home, if I'm working, I'm either working overtime or I'm tired and want to rest. And but so yeah, I probably only get out once a week to play. I've been real lucky over the past year, though, to be able to, I think that's probably the biggest advantage of working with Inside Pool or any of the events that I do, is that I get to be around and see firsthand, the best pool players in the world playing against each other. And even, when I get to commentate, I even learn even more because you're in there with other people. Like, I did some commentating with Tony Robles and Raj Handal when we were in Vegas, and it's just, you learn so much, even just dissecting the game, firsthand with a player at that caliber. Just being able to be around that, I learned a lot. So I was pretty lucky to fall into that stuff with Inside Pool. I was at a tournament in Florida a while back, and I'm friends with Sam Deep. She played on the Hunter Tour at the time, and she was really the only girl that I knew there at that tournament. And we started talking, and she found out that I used to coach speech and debate when I work with a nonprofit in Austin that's called the National Hispanic Institute, and it's basically leadership training for Hispanic high school students. So I've been involved with that for 10, 15 years now. So when she heard that I do that kind of stuff and that I'm do a lot of public speaking with that and in my job, she suggested that Inside Pool give me kind of an audition while I was there. And so I went ahead and did an interview, and they ended up hiring me for events after that. So I really just kind of by chance fell into it. So I hadn't thought about it before, honestly, until I started doing it for pool, and I really like it. I met some girls when we were in Galveston. They hired some girls outside the industry that do a lot of those spokesperson or on-air personality things for all kinds of industries, from NASCAR to bowling to everything. And I think I would like it. Yeah, I don't know if I'm formally trained enough for it to be able to do it outside of our industry, but I'm comfortable with it in pool because I know the game. But I'm not sure I would be comfortable enough to do it for other industries like they do. I know when they came, they felt pretty uncomfortable not knowing the terminology, and so I had to help them out with a lot of that and giving them background stories on the players and past experience. When one player's matched up against somebody else, you want to know the history of them playing against each other. So things like that. So I'm comfortable with it in pool, but I don't know about outside of that. Well, I travel a lot with Brana when I can go to tournaments with her. Sam Deep, we haven't lately, but a lot of times I like to travel with her as well. And Nicole Keeney, we'll travel together sometimes. So those are probably my favorite travel partners. But you know, in pool, there's a lot of different people that I go to for different things, you know. I mean, we know that you can't make a living off the payouts, or it's very hard to. So whenever I need advice on business stuff in the pool world, in the pool industry, there's a couple of particular people I go to because I think can be pretty brutally honest with me about things. So J.R. Calvert at Inside Pool gives me a lot of the background information on things when I want to understand the situation, or if, you know, what's kind of a gray area with one person or another, things like that. And Charlie Williams, actually, him and Karim from Predator all give me a lot of good advice when it comes to the business side. So anytime that I'm negotiating a contract for a certain event or anything like that, they kind of guide me as to what's normal for, like, what's an industry standard or things like that. So they help me a lot with that. And actually, Christy Carter too. She's helped me a lot. Allison's girlfriend and manager. She's, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think she's like serves as Allison's manager, and so she's kind of gives me advice whenever, particularly with WPBA stuff, if there's things that I don't understand about the rules or things that I need to get cleared in order to play in one event or another. She helps me a lot. Gosh, in the few WPBA events I've played, I think I've had a chance to play almost all of the players that I've always looked up to. I played the first 3 events I played in. First round, I drew somebody that made it to the finals. And so it was Ga Young Kim, Jasmine, and I've played Allison, all three of those first round in our tournament. So yeah, those were probably 3 of my favorite players. And Uram. Uram's one of my, I think Uram is probably my favorite player right now. Uram Cha. I won games. I didn't win matches, but I did win games. Yeah, I do. And, you know, most of the time I know I'm just donating, but that was another thing that my instructor always told me, was that you need to play in, I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I've been given too, that you need to put yourself in situations where you're playing in events that are higher than the level that you're really ready to be playing at. Because then once your skill level does catch up, you're not dealing with all those first time jitters, and, you know, you're comfortable with so much of pool is mental, that you don't have all those exterior factors. You know, it's something that you're comfortable with. You've been there before, you've done that before, and it can't be as bad as the first time, you know. So yeah, I think I do that a lot, even if I know that I'm just going to be donating the money to do it. I played in Turning Stone before I ever played in a WPBA event, and I think that's probably just as intimidating of an event, you know. So. Maybe it's particularly now. I mean, I haven't been part of the pool industry that long, so I don't really know what it was like before, and I don't know if it's because of the economy or what, that I think this might be the case, but it seems like people aren't mutually supportive of each other in the industry. You know, I think so many people are struggling to succeed that it just, they're kind of counterproductive when that happens, you know, and I don't think enough entities work together to make the sport prosper, and that's frustrating. I think a lot of times, I mean, because most of my work experience is outside the pool industry, you know, being part of corporate world, it's hard for me to transition whenever I'm working with people in the pool industry, because they don't go by normal business practices a lot of times, so it's frustrating because you don't think that you have to cover certain things that you really need to you know, because in the business world it's just an understood, you know, and sometimes it's not like that in the pool. So think just the industry itself is frustrating sometimes. Absolutely. Just the fact that, because the women's tour is run by an association, it's a board, it's made up of players and people in business and world, so it's, they have a vested interest in the tour succeeding, and, the players get a say-so in major decisions that are made in the tour, if, they get to vote those board members on, and they get to have a say-so when major policy is changed, all of those types of things. So it's governed by the players, and I think that makes a big difference. Whereas the men, there's a bunch of independent events that are either sanctioned or not, but they're put on by individual companies whose sole purpose is to make money off that event. So in the end, I think the male players really kind of get screwed over in that, because there's nothing in it for the promoters to make it lucrative for the players, you know what I mean, except attendance and getting those names there. So because they don't have anything organized like the women, I think it's they're kind of at the mercy of whatever events are being put on, whereas the women have a little bit more, they know a year in advance what events are going to happen. Whereas I know Shane would hear about things a month or two out that, we still don't know if the World 10 Ball is going to happen yet, or things like that. That's just not the case in the women's side. But at the same token, I would say, I would hear the guys complain a lot about how the women have this, and it's not fair that they should do that for the men and all this. But the women worked really hard to get that there. They started this tour a long time ago. They built it from the ground up. And on top of that, there's a lot of things that the women have to sign off on that I don't think any of it, you wouldn't be able to get half the men to do it. One of those being that the WPBA owns all their media rights, or their competition media rights. So if somebody wants to go play in an event that's televised somewhere else, it has to be sanctioned by the WPBA. They have to pay the correct fees to be able to use them in competition. There's a lot of things like that the men would never, I don't think, would ever agree to, that it would take. And on top of that, just lots of different things that you could be obligated to, that the women understand that there's a reputation to uphold, and there's no drug policies, there's no gambling policies at the tournaments. There's you could be required to participate in the pro-am events the night before. You don't necessarily have a say-so in it. Things like that it takes a lot of commitment from the players too, not just from the organization. And I don't think many of the men would be willing to sign on to that. So. Right now I play with the Poison and with the Predator Z2 shaft, and I use the Poison, their breast cancer brake cue. I do. There's a local sponsor that helps me out a lot with my travel, and it's Atex Family Fun Center. They're at atexfamilyfun.com, and I just signed on with a new sponsor for the next year. That's billiardbush.com. They do the Cue It Up cue clips. They're the cue clips that kind of look like the bag tips or bag tip clips, I guess. But so yeah, I'm going to be on with them this whole year. So it's a cue clip that you and it looks like one of those big chip bag clips where you push it and it clamps onto the side of a railing or something, and it has grooves in it to hold your cue. So it's called Cue It Up is the name of it. I don't know if it's hard to get sponsors. I think it's hard to demonstrate your value to sponsors, because I think that's another thing that a lot of pool players take for granted. They think, well, I play at this level, so or I play better than this person, so I should have this kind of sponsorship. But if you can't quantify your value to, a company, then it's not worth much to them, So, like ATEX at home, they help me out a lot with my travel, and particularly with events that are there in the area, because it makes more sense for them to promote me in their area since they're more of a local company. And Poison Cues also supports me a lot in any events that I do, and they have hired me to do some of the Predator 10-ball events. Like I'll be working for them when I'm in Spain doing the Predator 10-ball there. But yeah, I don't know about hard. I think it's just making sure that you're giving them the value of what they're paying you for it, I don't think so, because I think there's a lot prettier girls out there that I think I just happened to meet the right people at the right time. When I met Predator, I met Karim a couple of years ago. Rodney introduced me to him in Vegas a couple of years ago, and I just developed my relationship with them. And the same with the inside pool thing, it just kind of fell into it. I think, I'm sure that looks helps, but I don't, you could be the prettiest pool player out there and play better than everybody, but if you're not giving your sponsors the right, exposure, it still it's no value to them. If you're not in televised matches, if you're not going to a lot of the events, or, everything's what you make of it, I think. So, and I use Chanel Lorraine as an example a lot, because she's, obviously a lot of girls play better than her. And yeah, she's pretty, but there's also girls as pretty as her that play. But she's of more value to certain sponsors because she gets more television coverage than them. She's managed by Dragon Promotions. Dragon Promotions runs 30 to 40 events a year overseas that are all televised on 5 of the major networks over there. And ESPN in Asia gets 5 times the viewership of ESPN here in the United States. So her face plastered all over ESPN for 30 hours a year, is of value to a sponsor. But that versus who plays 10 times better than her maybe isn't anywhere on televised matches yet, then it makes more sense to a company to sponsor Chanel, because it's the exposure that she's getting, you know what I mean? So I don't know. All right, thank you.